Hello there, math fans. This video is really for anyone preparing for a final exam in one of our 100 level UW math courses, but particularly I'm making it in the spring of 2025 as I'm about to release exam 2 scores. And typically when I do that, I get a bunch of emails from students either in frustration or worry. And so I want to address a few things and give you a picture. At the end of this video, I will run 4 scenarios. I will show you how someone that currently has a 1-1 can end up above a 2-0. I'll show you how someone with currently has a 1-8 can end up with a 2-5. And I'll do a similar thing for some higher scores. So at the end of this video, I will do those 4 things. But I do want to address before we get started that all of this worry about grades is not really driven by this course, and some of it's real and some of it's not. So I want to address kind of the elephant in the room here, which is a 2-0 in this course means you understood the material and are ready to move on. A 2-5 means you did fine. A 3-0 means you did all right. So those scores do not mean that you are a bad student or that you don't know the material. A 3-0 is like a B. You should feel like I did well in this course. And the only reason people sometimes don't feel that is because of what they're hearing from external forces. They're hearing from a major that they have to get a 3.8. They're hearing from their friends. Try to ignore that pressure. Try to enjoy your learning. There are many opportunities at UW, not just those 1 or 2 majors that everyone wants to get into. Once you leave UW, no one's going to look and see that you got a C in this course. So let's be realistic about the situation. And this is, I always say, this is one test and one course and one small part of your otherwise happy life. But let's enjoy it while we're here. I hope you're enjoying learning. That's my goal. The grade stuff, I want to know if someone's telling you that your 3.0 is not good enough. That's the sort of data I'm collecting. I don't think it's as bad as people say, but I want to know if that's what you encounter. Okay, and you can tell me, email me, whatever. So I do want to point out a few things. I've really enjoyed talking to this group called BeReal. It is not the thing where you post a video or a picture of yourself at a random time of the day. There's this wonderful person I spoke to over there that they do these well-being trainings about how to manage and mitigate stress. I tried to join it, but I'm not a student. I will join it the next time they do a faculty session. I think there's something really important happening here. Anyways. I also think, I always send students to an academic advisor if they're in distress, but I think you might even be better served at starting with the instructional center. They have a lot of help for someone that's kind of like a very weak math background or something else is going on. They offer tutoring and workshops, and they may have sort of different paths and ideas for you, just talking to the tutors and advisors in there. If you know you're going into engineering, I think the Engineering Academic Center in Low Hall on the 2nd floor, just walk in and ask some of the students there. They have success coaches. Talk to them. I think that might be better than talking to some, stuffy old adult. Talk to a student who's gone through this. Get their specific advice. Don't trust your friends or what you see online. Go to someone who's actually done it. Academic success coaching. I've talked to someone there. They're in the 2nd floor of Clue. They are a great resource. Pretty much all the people that aren't the adults working there, but the staff is like students who've been through this. Make an appointment. Talk to them. I think those are going to be much more successful than like anything else you go, and there's a lot of them. You can also do the UW counseling. I tried to go in there, but they said faculty can't go in. It's for students, but you get a certain number of free visits. Also, you can read about majors and realize how many majors there are. So those are just a few things I wanted to say before we get into this. All right. I have in my syllabus, and this is not going to, if somebody's watching this in a future quarter, it changes slightly depending on the course, but we have basically a pretty set syllabus by the department. It's not exact, but what the percentage are. So a big percentage is exams, but I personally have a few policies that can help you, which I call my grace and grading policies, and many of us do something like this. So the way this works is you insert your percentages here, you multiply, that's how weighting works. So here's an example of a student that currently has a 1-1. They have a 51% in the course. I made up the numbers, but I looked for an example that was similar. They haven't done a chunk. It's kind of unusual to have an 80% of the homework. I add 5% to everyone's homework score up to a max of 100%. I do that to sort of account for these mistyped or I missed part of an assignment. So this student, it would turn into an 85. And let's say the student got a 73% on the final. So they did a little better. They still didn't do wonderful, but a little better. And I do a little adjustment. The adjustment is I change this low score to 70% of the average of the other two. I know that's a complicated thing, but I don't erase it. I don't think, many of us agree we can't completely erase that score because there's other students that did well on all of the exams and they should get higher scores. But because of this low grade, it's a little harder to get a 2.0. So I do a slight adjustment. In this case, the student would end up with, I calculated this, a 47%. So in the I wouldn't actually change it in the grade book, but in the calculation, and it just raises their percentage a little higher, which makes it a little easier to get to that 2.0 line. Okay, so this student would end up with a 66% and just get over the 2.0 line. That's right where it is currently. So can someone with a 1.1 get a 2.0? Yes. Are they going to have to do better on the final than they did on the other exams? Yes, because their other exams were below what's considered passing. You need to basically get around 70%. That's the stuff I said at the beginning of the term. Okay, so there is lots of hope for that student, and if they get above 73%, it will go higher. So that's number one, is almost everyone can still pass the course. Now, if you have below a 1.0, that's probably telling you something more, but some people don't need a 2.0 in the course. A 0.7 is the lowest grade to get credit. That might be enough for you. Ask an academic advisor. Okay. Next example is someone who currently has a 1.8. So here's someone who currently has a 1.8. And they've got most of the homework done, this is kind of common for most students. So this would change to 100%. And they got an 80% on the final. So they did a little better. For all these examples, I'm going to give a little better on the final and what that does. It changes this slightly, not a lot, but a few points back. They get a 74% and they're going to get a 2.5. So this person can go from a 1.8 to a 2.5. So the final is worth more than the other pieces. We do that because the points are more spread out. It's more of a breadth of your understanding. You have more time. So final can really bump you up. Okay, here's someone that currently has a 2.5. They've got 96 in the homework. That's going to become 100. Let's say they get a 90% in the homework. So they did about as well on exam 2 and exam 1. Exam 1 gets bumped up a little bit based off of how much they improved. And they're going to get an 85%, and they're going to get probably at least a 3.2. So you can go from a 2.5 to a 3.2. Last one here. So this person has a 3.2. As you get closer to the top, it's harder to move your grade as much because the people at the very top are the people that did well on everything. Whether that's fair or not, that's how it is. This person, their 93% will turn into a 98% on the homework. Their low exam score will not change. So that policy doesn't really help these people. They need to do well on the final. So this person, let's say they got a 95% on the final, they're going to go from a 3.2 to a 3.6. So you can see there is movement possible. We need to study hard for the final. We have a lot of time for it. I'm going to give lots of advice. Doing these calculations doesn't help you do better on the test. What does help you do better is preparing. And I'm going to help you in as any way I can doing that. All right. If anything's helpful here, please let me know. Give me a like, subscribe, give me a comment if you have a link to resources that might help your classmates. So learning should be enjoyable. You should be able to explore and stumble and see what things you're interested in. If you are not feeling that at UW, I want to know, because that's the sort of information I'm trying to help with. You're going to have to work hard to get into these competitive things, but there are many good paths at UW, and I want to help you find that. All right, thanks for listening.